most revered day of the Tebrobenian calendar. On the May full moon, according to legend, the Buddha had been born, had achieved enlightenment, and had died. Though to most people Vesak now meant no more than that other great annual holiday, Christmas, it was still a time for meditation and tranquility. For many years, monsoon control had guaranteed that there would be no rain on the nights of Vesak, +& -1. And for almost as long, Raja Singh had gone to the royal city 2 days before the full moon on a pilgrimage that annually refreshed his spirit. He avoided Vesak itself. On that day, Ranapura was too crowded with visitors, some of whom would be guaranteed to recognize him and disturb his solitude. Only the sharpest eye could have noticed that the huge yellow moon lifting above the bell-shaped domes of the ancient dagobas was not yet a perfect circle. The light it gave was so intense that only a few of the most brilliant satellites and stars were visible in the cloudless sky, and there was not a breath of wind. Twice, it was said, Kalidasa had stopped on this road when he had left Ranapura forever. The first halt was at the tomb of Hanuman, the loved companion of his boyhood, and the second was at the shrine of the dying Buddha. Raja Singh had often wondered what solace the haunted king had gathered, perhaps at this very spot, for it was the best point from which to view the immense figure carved from the solid rock. The reclining shape was so perfectly proportioned that one had to walk right up to it before its real size could be appreciated. From a distance, it was impossible to realize that the pillow upon which the Buddha rested his head was itself higher than a man. Though Raja Singh had seen much of the world, he knew no other spot so full of peace. Sometimes he felt that he could sit here forever, beneath the blazing moon, wholly unconcerned with all the cares and turmoil of life. He had never tried to probe too deeply into the magic of the shrine, for fear that he would destroy it, but some of its elements were obvious enough. The very posture of the enlightened one, resting at last with closed eyes after a long and noble life, radiated serenity. The sweeping lines of the robe were extraordinarily soothing and restful to contemplate. They appeared to flow from the rock, to form waves of frozen stone, and like the waves of the sea, the natural rhythm of their curves appealed to instincts of which the rational mind knew nothing. In timeless moments such as this, alone with the Buddha and the almost full moon, Raja Singh felt that he could understand at last the meaning of nirvana, that state which can be defined only by negatives. Such emotions as anger, desire, greed no longer possessed any power. Indeed, they were barely conceivable. Even the sense of personal identity seemed about to fade away like a mist before the morning sun. It could not last, of course. Presently, he became aware of the buzzing of insects, the distant barking of dogs, the cold hardness of the stone upon which he was sitting. Tranquility was not a state of mind which could be sustained for long. With a sigh, Raja Singh got to his feet and began to walk back to his car, parked 100 meters outside the temple grounds. He was near entering the vehicle when he noticed the small white patch, so clearly defined that it might have been painted on the sky, rising over the hills to the west. It was the most peculiar cloud that Raja Singh had ever seen, a perfectly symmetrical ellipsoid, so sharp-edged that it appeared almost solid. He wondered if someone was flying an airship through the skies of Tebrobeni, but he could see no fins, and there was no sound of engines. Then, for a fleeting moment, he had a far wilder fantasy. The star homers had arrived at last. But that, of course, was absurd. Even if they had managed to outrun their own radio signals, they could hardly have traversed the whole solar system and descended size of Earth, without triggering all the traffic radars in existence. The news would have broken hours ago. Rather to his surprise, Raja Singh felt a mild sense of disappointment. And now, resting at last the apparition's eyes, after a long and noble life, radiated serenity. The sweeping lines of the robe were extraordinarily soothing and restful to contemplate. They appeared to flow from the rock to form waves of frozen stone, and like the waves of the sea, the natural rhythm of their curves appealed to instincts of which the rational mind knew nothing. In timeless moments such as this, alone with the Buddha and the almost full moon, Raja Singh felt that he could understand at last the meaning of nirvana, that state which can be defined only by negatives. Such emotions as anger, desire, greed no longer possessed any power. Indeed, they were barely conceivable. Even the sense of personal identity